Again, friends, at this time we are beginning services for Marla Richman. Again, if you do have a cell phone, we ask you to place it in the silent mode or turn it off at this time. Officiating our services today is Rabbi Ari Hart.
We're here today in sorrow, in shock, to accompany Marla Richman, Me'ira Gila, Bat Baruch V'chana, to her final rest. Marla, beloved sister of Robin and Aviva, beloved aunt to Aiden and Meirav, cousin and friend to many. While Marla had been battling MS for many years, her passing came suddenly and unexpectedly with a massive heart attack that took her from us too soon. When we look back at the arc of Marla's life, we can see a spirit, a light that refused to be dimmed. Growing up here in Skokie, attending Hillel Torah, Evanston High School, throughout her life, Marla was not one who would fade into the background. Her life took on many journeys, filled with many passions, music, singing, theater, food, friends, writing, family. And we also know that for many years she struggled greatly with that horrific diagnosis that took so much from her. And even as her body struggled, and even as her mind struggled, her personality, her will, her spirit, her laughter remained distinct and intact. And today, we remember and we celebrate all of that. We'll first begin with some Tehillim, some Psalms, then we'll hear some words of memory from Aviva and Robin, followed by Brad, and then some concluding words in Akel Maleh. I'll begin with Psalm 23. Mizmor leDavid, Adonai roi lo echsar, binot deshe yarbitzeni al me menuchot yinahaleni, nafshi yeshovev yancheni b'magle tzedek leman shemo, Gam ki elech begeit hamavet lo yirah ki ata imadi, shivtecha mishantecha hema yenachamuni. Taroch lefanai shulchan neged sorerai dishanta b'shem roshi kosi revaya, ach tov v'chesed yudefuni kol yemei chayai, v'shavti b'veit Adonai le'orech yamim. A song of David, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. God causes me to lie down in lush pastures. God leads me beside tranquil waters. God restores my soul and guides me in righteous paths for God's name's sake. Though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for you are with me. Your scepter and staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in full view of my adversaries. You have anointed my head with oil, my cup overflows. May only goodness and kindness pursue me all the days of my life, and I shall dwell in the house of the Lord for the length of days.
We want to start by showing our appreciation for all the support that everyone here and around have been for us, for Marla, for our family. They're particularly Marla's caregivers, Arnie, Millie, and Ellen, who loved her, even when she was a little difficult to be with. They cared for her, and she loved them as well.
Marla was my big sister. I don't only mean in age, but she was always there for me. When we were in elementary school at Hillel Torah, one day my first grade class had recess with her fifth grade class, which was unusual. And I sat on her lap on the swing facing her. It's called honeymooners, for those of you who don't know, which sounds really horrible in my adult ears. And I was laughing so hard sitting on her lap and her talking to me that I peed on her lap. She had to walk around school with a wet skirt. She didn't get mad at me. When our babysitter sewed us Barbie clothes, I thought Marla's red Barbie robe was much better than my exact same peach Barbie robe, and Marla let me use the red Barbie robe. Marla shared her clothes with me, let me play with her hamsters, let me play with her play her records on her record player and her cassettes and CDs. She loved music. And when she was in high school, she took me to the AM/PM parking lot and taught me to drive. I was 13. She would bring me over to her boyfriend's house, and I would hang out with them, and she took me sailing with them. She was a character with a big personality. And when she was young, she wanted to be a rock star, songwriter, a music producer. Later in her adult life, she worked as a realtor, and for a short time, she sold meat out of a special fancy truck that she had bought, a mobile butcher of sorts. She did accounting for my mom's business and also for an arts organization when she lived in Florida. Marla was the world's best present giver. She always paid attention to the things you mentioned or saw and found the perfect gift for your birthday, even if it was months after you mentioned it. She didn't like to read when she was a kid, but as a tween, she picked up the King Arthur books and was enthralled by the wizard Merlin. The world of books opened up to her, and she loved to read everything, particularly mysteries. She even wrote a full-length, high-action spy thriller that she finished and was in the editing process when she got sick. Marla loved animals, horses, cats, and dogs. She was thrilled when she went scuba diving. She had loved to sing, and she had loved to drive. And like my father, she preferred manual stick shift. It gave her freedom. Maybe that's how my right-hand dominant sister was able to master driving her wheelchair using her left hand. MS took away a lot of things from her, but it didn't take her sense of humor or wit. She could make a whole group hysterically laugh at something she said, a zinger, as my husband calls them. If I didn't laugh at her joke, she would put on an exaggerated pout. She loved to make people laugh. Marla was thoughtful and curious. We would talk on the phone, and she would ask about my kids and Bram and my dog. My dog had surgery on his paw last week, and she called several times to see how he was doing. Last night, I listened to a voice message that she had left last week, asking if my dog was keeping his post-surgery booty on. Then she said, "Love you," as she always did when we hung up. While her mind wasn't as sharp due to MS, she still knew all the latest news and what was happening in politics, which celebrity had died. I was supposed to come in 2 weeks from now to visit her. We had decided to do a charity project, pack bags with hats and mittens for people in shelters, something I thought she could do with her left hand, the only part of her that she could move. The MS really frustrated her. I can't really imagine what it was like for her to have another person do almost everything for her, even adjust her pillow. Can you move the pillow slightly to the right? Okay, little to the left. Okay, thank you. In order to get comfortable to fall asleep. But she was not really ever comfortable. The Hats and Mittens project was an idea that came about after Marla and I talked about Viktor Frankl, the Holocaust survivor, writer, philosopher, who wrote, and I'm paraphrasing, that even when you can't control certain things in your life, you can still control your attitude. You can still choose your attitude. Marla and I spoke about choosing kindness. I wasn't sure she was 100% committed to the hat idea. Apparently, she really didn't want to do it. That was for my dad. He liked humor at funerals. I am going to say it, I hate January now, but I loved Marla very much. I wish she had been well so that she could have fulfilled her big dreams, and also so that my kids could have known her before she was sick. She gave them an upfront understanding of life with disability, and I hope that in her memory they will always have deep compassion and empathy for people with disabilities, for immigrants, for people with mental health issues, for all people. We are all in this together. I hope we all learn that from her life. Marla, I love you so much and will miss you so much. I am so grateful for you. There will be a huge hole in my life that is hard to think about. I hope now you will finally get to see Hawaii and swim with the fish.
Again, being here at the beginning of January it makes you think. January is supposed to be the time of renewal, but for our family, it's been a very depressing month. The only lesson I can possibly glean is something that all of us already know, but few of us take seriously. You never know when it's your last day. Tell those you love them that you love them. I am so grateful that the last thing we said to one another was, "I love you." She was funny. Whenever she'd hang up on the phone, she would say, "I love you," and she'd wait for me to respond, and then she'd say it again, "I love you too." It was truly a love that grew deeper as Marla and I spent more time together. As my younger sister, our relationship was, at times, complicated, like many sibling relationships are. We had seasons of rivalry, seasons of distance, and seasons of deep connection. She started as the sister who suddenly took away my exclusive time with our parents. And because she was such a character, that meant a lot more attention to her. Our teenage and young adult years were typical sibling rivalry. But as we became adults and had our own homes, we did more things together and often became each other's person. After her impulsive adventure, marrying the cruise director from our family cruise vacation and moving to Florida, our visits were fewer, but we kept showing up for each other in all versions of ourselves. And I mean all versions. Take, for example, the time that I visited her and we got into a fight. I can't remember what the fight was, but I do remember her getting so mad at me that she called the police. By the time they came, she had already calmed down, but it took a whole lot of explaining to the police to tell them that we were okay. Of course, we ended up laughing about it together later that night. And thank God for laughter. It's a big part of the Richmans, but for Marla, it was also a wonderful way that she got through the disease, and to be honest, a way that made it so much easier to take care of her. She laughed at times that if I were in the situation, I'd be frozen with worry. But she just laughed. Once in the old house, Aviva and I were taking care of Marla so my parents could get a little break. This was before she was fully bedridden and before we had a lift. We tried to move her from the wheelchair to the bed, and we dropped her. And then we couldn't get her back up. Marla, instead of getting upset, just started laughing. And of course, that made the three of us start laughing. And we were laughing so hard that there was no way we could move her. So we pulled the mattress off another bed, rolled Marla on top of it, made the bed, and then the three of us slept on the floor together until morning when the caregiver came and could help us. That was Marla, finding an opportunity to laugh in the hardest moments. If you met Marla later in life, wheelchair, tough days, doctor visits, you still saw a big piece of the person she had always been. Imagine the Marla you knew, but on steroids. A big personality, a bigger laugh, and a razor-sharp wit. She always had a comeback. She could slice through a foggy day with a perfect one-liner that made you, or me, snort, laugh, and say, "Okay, you got me." She loved catching you doing something silly. "Oh, you're ordering the spicy dish again? Good idea that you forgot that you lost your taste buds last time," she'd say with a deadpan delivery and a mischievous sparkle in her eye. She could be dramatic in the best way. She loved the stage and sang opera and always wanted to be on TV. She would constantly ask my mom to drive her to auditions to be extras in films. A funny side note is when my mom one time dropped her off for an audition to audition in Home Alone. My mom was taking our dog Rocky out for a walk while she was waiting for Marla, and the crew came to my mom and filmed my mom and my dog. But Marla didn't get a part. Before the MS, Marla was an avid reader, and she even wrote a novel. She wanted us to help her edit it and get it published. I still have it on my computer, and I wish I'd self-published it for her. She would have gotten such a kick out of seeing her name on a cover. Reading got harder when the illness moved her mind, but she still reached for stories. Going to book club at Yachad were some of the few times she didn't complain about getting ready to go out. She liked reading aloud, commenting, sharing her thoughts. I am so grateful to Yachad and Kaylee and Debbie for keeping her engaged and finding programs that worked for Marla's capabilities. She also did a planting class with Yachad, and when I asked her what she wanted to grow at home, she said strawberries. I bought plants for both of us. I never saw any fruit. Marla, on the other hand, had strawberries growing on the back deck, bright, red, and delicious, and she enjoyed every bite. In a way, that was her. She could coax life out of a hard soil. Marla, during her illness, she did her nightly cleansing routine, which was always intense. Moisturizing, careful steps, take everything in order, and it showed. At 58, she barely had a wrinkle and had a few gray hairs. She cared about looking good, and it took a long time for her not to be embarrassed by her wheelchair. At some point, that faded, not completely, but she got just accustomed to the wheelchair, and she did it, and she didn't care if what she was doing seemed silly. If she wanted it, she did it. She had aches and pains, and she insisted on pillows on her feet, towels by her arms, blankets behind her head, wraps on her legs. When she came into her room, it wasn't just a wheelchair, it was a throne. The building doorman called her Queen Marla, and she loved it. In the last few years, as Viva and I were co-parenting, I was the caregiver on the ground. I brought her to doctor appointments. I made sure she was eating the right things, found programs to engage her in. We scheduled, rescheduled, and sometimes fought for her. I remember when we were having trouble with funding from the state, I took her to the library to meet the state representative. I introduced her, and it was easily clear that what the state said Marla could do on her own was impossible. The representative gladly helped us. I'm not going to lie, it wasn't easy, as many caregivers here know, and at times I would have preferred to do my own thing. But I never saw caring for her as a burden. It was love. It was family expressed in lists and rides, meals, and phone calls. Somewhere through all of this, Marla developed a trust in me that she never had before. She knew I was always looking out for her, and I was. That trust became sacred to me. And because Marla wasn't someone who easily trusted, it made it all the more special. Friday nights were different. I wasn't her caregiver. I was her sister. I was her friend. Brad and I spent Friday night with her whenever we were in town. She sang the prayers for lighting the candles with me, and then I'd go and kiss her a good Shabbos. And at that point, that kiss always felt so strong. Our routine continued when Brad and Marla would pretend to be annoyed that I insisted on singing extra songs to welcome in Shabbat and sang the longer Kiddush. But Marla always sang along. She knew all the words. And she would joke and laugh at telling me how off-key I was. She'd ask for the Bartonura Moscato, hold up her little wine glass and joke, "I'm a shicker," and we'd all laugh. We made it our custom that she would say the hamotzi, or the prayer over bread, over the challah, and she belted it out like it was her stage. Because she was gluten-free, we never bought the full-size challah, and I would buy little rolls. Every time we uncovered the challah, she'd say, "Ooh, what a big one," and as she sized up the challah rolls. Brad would sneak her a big piece because he knew that she loved it. They always had that special bond. And then we'd play games, and sometimes we danced. Yes, danced. We really did. let's dance with the wheelchair, I'd say, and she'd roll her eyes and then humor me. We'd put on music, and she'd move her chair back and forth to meet me. Karaoke nights was even better. She didn't need the lyrics. She knew all the words to the songs. Girls Just Want to Have Fun, that was a favorite, and she sang it like she meant it. Marla loved game nights, games that we played at night. Celebrity Throwdown, Flash 7, and Rummy Q. She loved to gamble a bit, too. At our cousin's bat mitzvah, we stayed at a hotel connected to a casino. Everyone went to sleep, except Marla and her caregiver. They stayed up late, betting, laughing, and playing, and living in the moment. Just last Friday night, my Aunt Elaine was over, and we played a serious game of Rummy Q. I was helping Marla, but she kept finding more ways to get rid of her tiles than I did. I remember thinking, maybe some of the brain fog is lifting. It felt hopeful. Marla was vibrant, mischievous, and keenly aware in a way that made life feel bigger. Illness changed logistics of how she moved through the world, but it never contained her spirit. She was my sister, she was my friend, she trusted me, and I carried that trust with honor. May her memory be for a blessing, and we may carry forward her laugh, her courage, her boldness, and her big-belted hamotzi, and her way of preserving her voice, her dignity, even when it seemed dark. She was and will always be a blessing.
I also want to thank everyone for being here. It's just very meaningful and quite a bit of, I mean, I'm in disbelief, and not that you're here, but just disbelief for myself being here, because I feel like I was just here for Bert and then just here for Anne, and I just, Marla was not ready. She wasn't ready. And I never thought I'd be here this soon for Marla. She had a lot of life in her. She had a lot of life in her all the way to the end. She was reading. Those of you who know the Da Vinci Code, Dan Brown came out with a new book, Secret of Secrets, and she was working her way through it. And every week, I would ask her, "What's the secret?" And she said, "I don't know yet. I haven't gotten to it yet." And she was so close to finishing that book. I know she didn't want to leave till it was done. But I shall have to check Wikipedia now to find out the secret. I don't know. But I didn't know Marla when she was younger. I only knew her for the last maybe 6 or 7 years, when her life was obviously very different. But she still had such a great personality, and you could get that from her. And she did have a great sense of humor. There was one time where Robin and I were having Shabbat dinner with her, and you'll remember this, Robin. All of a sudden, we were talking, and all of a sudden, we looked over, and she was not breathing. It looked like she was choking. And of course, for someone with MS, that's a very serious issue. Robin and I jumped up. Turns out she had just cracked herself up with something she had said. She was laughing so hard, but because she had smaller lung capacity, we thought she was choking, and she was actually just laughing. And then it got even funnier because she thought she'd said something funny, and we're standing next to her wheelchair yelling, "Breathe, breathe." She couldn't understand what was going on. So Jesus made her laugh even harder. we played a lot of Uno. I played a lot of Uno with her. She loved, after Shabbat dinner, I'd sit down with her and Ann, and we would play Uno. And I could never win. I have master points from bridge, but I couldn't beat him at Uno. And I rarely even got close, but I remember one time I was down to Uno. I was down to one card, and it was Ann played, and then it was Marla, and then me. And it came to Marla's turn. I think I even had a wild card, so my victory was assured. And she had a total poker face, and because of her condition, she couldn't actually reach the table. So she takes a card out and she hands it to Robin, and Robin would put it on the table. So there was this sort of extra moment or two of anticipation, and the card drops, draw 2. And I never recovered, lost the game. We just laughed so much about that time, and so many great times. Dessert was one of the things that we kind of had a bond over dessert. And the sisters were so good about making sure that Marla ate the right foods, salad and broccoli and so on. And they were so good about making sure that she ate right. But I was a bit of a corrupter because I knew that she took joy from dessert. And so I started to bring like a piece of apple pie or ice cream. And sometimes if Robin wasn't looking, I maybe put in an extra scoop or something for her. And, or I'd say, or one time, Robin would say, wait, did you have your ice cream yet? When she had it already, and I'd cleared the bowl. And she kind of paused and didn't say anything. And I said, no, I haven't given it to her yet. Brought out a second bowl. You know, we just had so much fun. I have a piece of chocolate cake in the freezer for her right now. And it just, when I think about Marla, she struggled through the salad and the broccoli, but she never lost the joy of the dessert. And that was really kind of like her life to me, that she always still found the joy, in these small things. And we're going to miss her so much, but, I know that Ann and Bert are happy to have her up there. And she's got her cats with her that she loved. And Marla, we think about you all the time. And anyway, thank you for coming.
This cycle of weekly Torah readings, we just began the book of Exodus. Exodus begins with the Jewish people in the land thriving. A bright beginning, prosperous area, many good things are happening. And then as the story progresses, things, of course, descend. And the oppression becomes heavier, the darkness becomes heavier, and we fall to great depths and darknesses. But our tradition teaches us that even though the bodies were enslaved, and even though they fell so deeply, they never let the darkness crush their spirit. And there's a famous midrash, a story about mirrors. And I was thinking about this last night. You said that Marla would always sit across from the mirror. Marla liked to be in the scene, in the mirror, at the dinner table. So the story is, when they're building the tabernacle, the Mishkan, later on in the book of Exodus, many women come and they want to donate their mirrors to the building of the tabernacle. And Moses rejects the mirrors. Mirrors for this holy place, mirrors which are vanity and looks and makeup, right? This has no space in our tabernacle. And God rebukes Moses. He says, no, you're wrong. Those mirrors are very, very sacred, very holy mirrors. And they absolutely belong in the temple. And they use the copper mirrors. God corrects Moses and says, we're going to use those mirrors to build the temple. So why are the mirrors so holy? Why was Moses wrong? The mirrors were used for beautifying themselves. They were used for makeup and hair. The Midrash teaches that the men in the beginning of Exodus fell into despair. They kind of gave up. It was so bad, they were so tired, and that spirit of life was gone from them. And the women used the mirrors to make themselves beautiful, to flirt, to revive that spirit of life, which was essential, which is the key ingredient in the Jewish survival then and throughout our history. The mirrors helped bring light and joy and beauty into what seemed like a hopeless situation. Marla loved mirrors, and I think in some ways Marla can even be a kind of a mirror for us. Like the slavery, Marla's physical situation deteriorated. It grew progressively worse and worse. But as you both shared so beautifully, all three of you, she didn't let the suffering take away her humanity, her humor, her beauty. She didn't put down the mirror. She possessed that sharp power of observation. She could see, she could identify, she could make herself beautiful, make the world beautiful. And in doing that, I think she teaches us all some very profound lessons. That holiness is not just in prayer or in religious acts. Holiness, like the women in their mirrors and like Marla in her mirrors, holiness is found in being able to laugh when you're in pain. Holiness is found in a little bit of drama when you're living. Even when the body's failing, one can be tremendously holy and beautiful. Marla created joy when there could have only been sadness. She chose that. And that's, I think, a beautiful mirror for all of us to learn from, reflecting resilience and humor and a love and passion for life. May the memory of this righteous woman, of Me'ira Gila bat Baruch V'chana, be a blessing for us all. We're now going to say El Maleh. You're invited to rise as you are able. El Maleh Rachamim, Shochein Bamromim, Hamsei Menucha Nechona, Al Kanfei Hashchina, Bemalot Kedoshim V'Teorim, Kezohar Harakia Mazhirim, Et Nishmat Me'ira Gila, Bat Baruch V'chana, Shehalach Le'olama, Bavor Shanachnu Mitpalalim Bad Haskarat Nishmata, Began Eden Tehe Menuchata, Lachein Baal Harachamim Yastirea Beseter Knafav Le'olamim, Vitzor B'tzorachayim Nishmata, Al Zayu Nachlata V'tenuach B'Shalom Amishkava, Venomar, Amen. God, full of compassion, who dwells on high, grant proper rest on the sheltering wings of your presence, in the lofty levels of the holy and pure, who shine as the brightness of the firmament, unto the soul of Marla Richman, Me'ira Gila bat Baruch V'chana, who has gone to her world and for whose memory we pray. May her rest be in paradise. May the Master of compassion bring her under the cover of God's wings and bind her soul in the bond of life. May the Lord be her heritage, and may she rest in her resting place in peace. And let us respond, Amen.
You can be seated. This concludes this portion of the service here at the chapel. The interment will continue at Waldheim Jewish Cemetery, that's in Forest Park. And upon return from the cemetery, today beginning at 2 p.m. and until 4 p.m., the family will be together at the Robin Richman and Brad Cohn residence, which is 732 Sheridan Road in Evanston. That information is available inside the folders you received today as you arrived, and if you did not receive them, they will be made available as you depart. It's also available on our website as well. There are additional shivat times for Saturday from 6 p.m. to 8 p.m., Sunday from 10 a.m. to 12 noon, and there will also be a Zoom link that will be added to the website as well, too, for those who would like to stream the shiva. For those of you who are going with us in procession to the cemetery, we ask that you please keep a few safety measures in mind. Please make sure that you follow the car in front of you, especially as we make our way through intersections, so that we can avoid any breaks in the procession. You're welcome to use your horns liberally as you do so. And please make sure to obtain an orange funeral safety sticker to place on the passenger side of your front windshield, And make sure your bright headlights and your hazard lights are on at all times. We will have a car in the front and the back of the procession, but again, we want to try to keep everyone together. The following will assist as pallbearers upon our arrival at the cemetery, but I'd like to announce their names now. Brad Cohn, Bram Duchovny, Aidan and Marev Duchovny, and Steve Geifman. We'll ask you to meet us at the cemetery at that time when we arrive. And for now, I'll ask everyone to please rise as we escort the family from the chapel.